We have chefs coming out in the media saying culinary school stupid, or I'll never hire a graduate of so-and-so culinary school because they think they know everything and they think they're going to come out making 80 grand and so on.
Hey everybody, welcome to Cooks Who Care, where we bring experienced professionals from all walks of life to talk about topics that really matter to us most. And today we're talking about culinary foundations and how it's really been changing the landscape of where talent is coming from. There's no other professional I could think of to bring to you to talk about it than Jonathan Deutsch, who's a professor at Drexel, and really break down the status quo of what is and has always been to something new. So I hope it gets you thinking, and you check out some of the other episodes that we have on Cooks Who Care.
And the number one issue we hear about is talent. There's just not enough cooks, and they're not strong enough, and they're not hardworking enough. They don't really want to pay their dues. And so certainly I think, some of our efforts have bettered that. Chef instructors tend to teach the way they were taught, and they tend to reflect the types of kitchens they worked in. So we need to push ourselves as educators to be like, you know what, this is the way we did things 20 years ago, and the way our line was structured, and the way we operated our establishment, but that's not necessarily what's happening now, first of all, and that's not necessarily the right way to do it. Get students in the kitchen earlier and earlier, so that when they're graduating, they're not graduating with college debt and high expectations, and then lo and behold they get their first $10 an hour prep job, if that, or maybe even offered a free unpaid stage as their first opportunity, and just feeling like, what did I go to school for, right?
So you've written this Culinary Education manifesto, and it really pushed the status quo of what current culinary education has been over the course of years. You've included the history, you talked about the future, and really thinking about it in a totally different way.
I think we're at a really key point in culinary education. We have schools closing left and right. We have chefs coming out in the media saying culinary school stupid, or I'll never hire a graduate of so-and-so culinary school because they think they know everything and they think they're going to come out making 80 grand and so on. There's class action suits against some of the culinary schools. There's student walkouts. And I feel like we as educators, as a faculty, need to be active and engaged in this conversation. So we got a bunch of people together, educators, chefs, people who care about this stuff, and just said, like, what are the issues, what are the problems? This is a national or possibly global concern. And there's a mismatch, right? We keep hearing chefs say, I need more cooks, I need better cooks. And we keep hearing culinary school students say, I'm not getting the wages I want, I'm not getting the opportunities I want, and I'm paying a lot of money for this, and you've got to help me. But something's not translating, right? And I think we really need to frame culinary education differently, and a lot of the things we talked about are included in that manifesto. For example, we're using curriculum from 1906 from Escoffier. Escoffier himself said, our industry is constantly changing. Basically, to paraphrase, by the time the ink is dry on this paper, there's going to be a better way to do this. So he got it, but we're married to the stuff that he was apologizing for, which is things like the mother sauces and the small sauces. He's saying, here's how I'm classifying it, but we have to constantly evolve and change this stuff. And every culinary school in the country now is teaching the mother sauces, which were codified by him in 1906. He's rolling in his grave saying, why are you doing this? To what extent are we evolving, and to what extent too are we pushing and saying, you know what? If we do a better job in school, we can actually advance the industry and not just meet the industry needs. We're thinking of ourselves as training and supplying a product, right, of a trained student to the industry. Well, what if we say, okay, that's part of it, and we want to do that, and we certainly want students to work while they're in school, but we want to challenge the industry and push the industry a little bit further, right? Maybe you don't need so many staff, because maybe we can move the talent upstream and they can create some sort of product or process that's going to make your line work a lot more efficiently. Maybe you're structured based around the equipment and Escoffier's brigade. Maybe you don't even want a line that way, Can our students be innovating on these types of topics? I think is really interesting.
Yeah, no.
Most chefs we talk to say, I can handle the cooking stuff. Like, I don't need them to learn that in culinary school. What I need someone dependable and adaptable and reliable and not on drugs and who's not an asshole to the dishwasher and will, engage with my staff in Spanish, or at least make an attempt, right? Those are the kinds of comments we keep hearing. That the story we were always told was going to culinary school teaches you the same kinds of things you could learn on the job, but it accelerates your learning, right? Because no chef is ever going to take out 8 hours a day just to teach you, right? You're going to pick things up. So you can get 10 years of on-the-job training and 2 years of school would be the approach. That's fine. I think we can go further than that and say there are things that chefs tell us they need to learn and they wish they knew. Things like equipment maintenance, which is not taught really in culinary schools, right? Things like Spanish language for non-Spanish speaking chefs, which is not taught in most culinary schools. And things like food science, right? Cooking is chemistry and biochemistry and biology, physics. It may seem ridiculous to teach thermodynamics at a culinary school, but I think that's only because we as chefs aren't comfortable enough with physics to understand how obvious it is to teach thermodynamics, right? What are you doing in a kitchen? You're heating things up and you're cooling things down, right? So how could we not why would our first course not be thermodynamics, right? Instead of knife skills. Culinary school almost needs to invert, right? We almost need to say, the best way to learn to cook is to hang out with some great chefs, and they need you right now. So why, get out of my kitchen, go to all these great chefs who you've had on this channel, and hang out with them. That's where you'll learn to cook. What you need me for is learning the big picture, the context, the connections, right? The career planning, all of that other stuff is what culinary school can do for you beyond, here's how to cut an onion. Don't look at culinary schools as a vendor, right? I feel like a lot of chefs think of culinary schools as a supplier of talent, the same way they're thinking of their fish person or their meat person or their produce person. And to some extent we do supply talent, but they can actually shape that talent, right? By getting involved with us and getting involved with students earlier and being great mentors and saying, how can we help you and how can you help us, and creating that kind of dynamic. Because there's, and I understand chefs are busy, and the way it doesn't work and where there's a lot of frustration is chefs will say, I'm opening next week, I need 3 line cooks. You have 100 students, surely you can provide me 3 line cooks. And it doesn't work that way. First of all, it's not my job, although I'd love to do that when I can. Second of all, do the math. 100 students sounds like a lot. Okay, you divide that over 4 years, it's 25 in a class. Almost all of them are already working because they're great and they're, precious commodities, right? So now you're thinking maybe there's 3, 4, or 5 who, out of that 25, who are not already working. And why are they not already working? Well, maybe they have kids, maybe they have elder care responsibilities, maybe they're a lawyer and they have a full-time job in another field, right? So the expectations of industry don't always match our reality.